in Russia, over the last couple decades, we've heard many times that the biggest tragedy of the 20th century was the fall of the USSR. Not World War I, not World War II, not millions of lives lost in the Red Terror created by the Joseph Stalin, not Golodomor, not the Cold War, but the demise of the USSR. Well, guess what? In many ways, the USSR is back. In one of those ways is how we celebrate New Year. Howdy, everyone. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where I give you my opinions, takes, views on things happening in Russia, news, events unfolding. Usual Russia explained by the unusual Russian. That's me. Welcome to the first day of 2023. And let's hope that this year will be better than the previous one. Let's hope that this year will bring all of us peace. Now, let me tell you my take on how Russian culture has been hijacked by neo-Soviet propaganda. I bet you will not find what you're gonna hear right now anywhere else. And you will not hear it from anywhere else. Now, why I named my stream Russian propaganda striking New Year celebration? Because New Year celebration in Russia is a big deal. Historically, it's very important. It's the biggest celebration of the year. It's the holiday season packed into one holiday. That is New Year. You know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year in the West packed into one day. I'll give you a little history lesson. In Russia, before Bolsheviks, over 100 years ago, New Year and Christmas were both celebrated. New Year was celebrated on January 1st and Christmas on December 25th, like the rest of the world. Now, the Bolsheviks came in 1917. They staged a coup, seized power, and first thing they did, they canceled Christmas and New Year celebration. Well, in general, they were canceling everything that had memories of the old countries because they needed to build their own new country, their own monster, which they succeeded. They banned Christmas, they banned New Year. For next 20 years, Russians didn't celebrate either. Well, Russians had bigger issues to worry about. World War II and the Red Terror before. Well, the next milestone, or the first milestone, in celebrating New Year came in 1947. The World War II was over and Soviet state needed to give Soviet people something to celebrate. Some kind of a big event. Joseph Stalin decided that it would be the New Year celebration. Of course, Christmas was out of the question because Soviet government, led by Joseph Stalin, they banned Christianity. And of course, they could not be Christmas. I mean, that'd be crazy. They replaced Christianity with another religion called communism. Communism was actually modeled after Christianity. It had Messiah, Vladimir Lenin. It had prophets. It had saints. It had 10 amendments, used to be called Codex Строителя Коммунизма, basically 10 amendments from the Bible and so forth. So communism did not need competition. Therefore, celebration of New Year was born 1947. Every year, Russians would celebrate, one year changing, replacing another. But it wasn't huge. It was just one of those days, okay? January 1st was day off, national day off for everyone. December 31st was a usual work day, and January 2nd was a usual work day. So it was just one day off. Quick celebration, that's it. Well, at least people had something to celebrate, you know. Next milestone came when new entertainment media was introduced in the USSR. It's called television. First TV sets appeared in early 60s, and in 1961, in Russia, the first New Year celebration TV show was introduced. It was called The Blue Light. Why the blue light? Well, plain and simple. Back then, the TV sets were black and white, and the screen light was bluish. And if you looked into the apartments of Soviet people at night of the 31st of December, you would see blue lights everywhere. Darkness and blue lights of the TV screens, and Russian families glued to the TV screens. Therefore, the name The Blue Light was born. And it was a celebration, a TV show that would start at midnight of the first day of the new year. It lasted for a couple hours. Basically, it was a bunch of songs, bunch of performers, bunch of famous people, everyone celebrating, confettis everywhere, you know, that type of stuff. It was fun. Well, the shows weren't great, but the thing is, people didn't have anything else. It was the biggest TV show of the year, plain and simple. The next milestone appeared in 1971 when Leonid Brezhnev, back then the boss of the USSR, the first secretary of Politburo, made a speech right before the blue light, right before the midnight. He basically, for a few minutes, he addressed Russian Soviet people saying, you know what, Soviet people, comrades, friends, have a great year. Basically, it was a very simple, it was a very primitive speech, but then every boss of the USSR started, and then later Russia, started making that speech every single year. It became a New Year tradition, the president's speech, as we call it right now. Next milestone came in 1991. Oh boy. Very, very interesting time, let me tell you. Soviet Union fell apart. Like someone said, it was the worst tragedy of 20th century to someone, at least, you know. Someone special. And everything changed in Russia. The thing is, competition was introduced. And private TV stations were introduced. And they started competing for people's attention because they started selling advertisement. But basically, the modern model of TV business was introduced into Russia, 1991. And you know what happened with New Year TV shows? Revolution. Because people all of a sudden, in competition, those businesses, right? They started coming up with original ideas, with something interesting. They started attracting biggest stars. They started inviting stars from abroad. They started making these shows really interesting. Unlike they were in the 80s, in the 70s, dull, boring, bleak. In the 90s, they became incredible. I remember I was a student in the early 90s in Russia, and at every New Year, I was torn between the channels. I was switching channels because different shows were so great, all of them. Okay, so the next milestone came in 2007. What happened in 2001? There were a bunch of independent TV channels, TV stations They were all creating original content, as they say now, very interesting content, very interesting shows. And the government decided that it needed to gain control back over all television stations. And it started seizing television channels, television stations. And it took Russian government 1 year, one perhaps two, I don't remember. But anyway, very short time. And it gained control over everything. Said you had a little bit of freedom. Well, you know what? You enjoyed it. Now it's time to go back to the USSR. But the thing is, for a few years, the Russian government is very smart. It doesn't do revolutions. It does evolutions. It does stepping stones. For a few years, it let all the TV stations work as nothing happened, okay? Until about 2007. Then the competition was over. It died. It was killed. When the government starts running things, things are going to deteriorate. And this is exactly what happened with TV channels. Original content was gone. The government started putting more and more money, financing more and more these TV channels. And anyway, that overall level of quality of television in Russia started declining. And the shows, the blue lights, they started declining in quality as well. No competition, plain and simple. Government gives you money, you take the money, you come up with an idea, you don't care whether to compete with others or not. You know that you're going to spend the money, you're going to do it, and that's it. And people were thrown back into the 80s where, not all at once, but step by step, where they kind of didn't have a choice. They had a choice between 3 or 4 programs, TV shows, New Year celebration TV shows, but they all were kind of the same, and they were of lower and lower quality. Year by year, the quality was declining. I would say the next 15 years were tasteless. I stopped watching these New Year celebrations. They were just not interesting. They became very, poor taste. Very, rich, lots of gold, lots of luxury, but very little humor, very little class, very little, there's lots of, very little taste. But you know what? Hey, taste, no taste, I don't care. I just opted not to watch them. The next milestone came yesterday, 2022. And honestly, I kind of expected it. I must add, every single year there was a president's speech with no exceptions. I think the exception was in 1991 because old president was no more, Mikhail Gorbachev, and the new president was not yet, okay? And there was a stand-up comedian kind of did a stand-up a comic show, some kind of a comic greeting of a new country. Boris Yeltsin, after that, addressed the nation before midnight, and Vladimir Putin addressed the nation, Dmitry Medvedev, and then Vladimir Putin again. Well, Vladimir Putin's speeches were more or less the same. They were done according to one formula. Very simple formula. Basically, it said something like, something like this. We had a tough year. This year had this, and this. Okay, but we are looking into this upcoming year with optimism, and I wish you all the best. I wish you prosperity. I wish you this. I wish you that. Let's celebrate. Something like that. He never failed. The same formula. I guess he's had the same speechwriter for 20 years. But it was harmless. It never was propaganda. It never was a call to something. It was just New Year president's speech, no more, no less. Now comes 2022, and 2022 was a very strange year, and it changed everything, including how Russia celebrate New Year. Now, I never watch Russian TV. Here in Uzbekistan, I don't even have it. I have a large TV on a wall that I don't turn on. And since we had guests over yesterday, and my wife asked me to somehow to hook up Russian channels to TV. Not a big deal. Hey, tradition is tradition. So I hooked up my computer, and I have bunch of Russian channels on internet. It's accessible, and I decided not to watch President's speech due to moral reasons, due to my political stand. I said, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. I decided to go to bed after we celebrate here in Uzbekistan 2 years before Russia's New Year. I changed my opinion later, and I'll tell you why. Anyway, I turned the TV on, and there was channel number 1, Russia's prime channel, news channel, 6 p.m. News, last news report of the day, last news report of the year. I just happened to turn on at the time when they started reporting the news. So I kind of watched it by accident. The news made me sick. There was a guy, a reporter, and he was in a good mood. He was smiling, and he was saying that the biggest news of the day was Russia's massive strike of targets in Ukraine, both military and civilian. Before, like 6 months, 7 months, when the strike was executed, they made sure they said, well, you know what, it's strictly military, it's strictly, we were forced to do that, it's strictly like high precision strike, and that's it. Now their tone has changed. They were happy reporting about that. The guy was literally, he wasn't smiling, but he was upbeat reporting that. And then they showed someone's cell phone recording of the sky in around Astrakhan, and there were like tons of traces of rockets flying, white traces like planes, but the big ones for rockets. Multiple, I think over a dozen or so. And the reporter was saying, oh, each of those rockets is going to hit a strike in Ukraine. Is going to strike a target in Ukraine. And I was thinking to myself, am I crazy? Am I really here? Can I unhear it? Because every single rocket is going to bring death to people. It's going to damage the infrastructure, and some people gonna freeze. Some people gonna gonna be left without electricity, and that's New Year Day. This is gonna be a New Year celebration, just few short hours. What the hell is going on? So this news made me sick. I hadn't seen anything like this before on Russian TV. Well, I don't watch it often, but I was absolutely appalled. Okay. Turned off the news, and I wanted to put something on, something more upbeat, I didn't want to watch this crap. There was nothing to choose from. Old Soviet movies, kind of propaganda movies, war programs. The only 2 channels I found I was safe to watch, and my kid was safe to watch, and my family was safe to watch, was a channel called Culture. They were playing classical music. And another channel was a movie from the 80s made in the Czech Republic. Back then it was called Czechoslovakia. The movie is called 3 Knots for the Cinderella, and it was a fairy tale. I remember I watched it as a kid, and this is what I left on TV. I was streaming yesterday how we were celebrating New Year, and if you go back to the stream and you look at what we were watching, you will clearly see that movie on TV because there was nothing else. It was very ironic for a Russian family in outside Russia, but we're still celebrating along with millions of Russians. We were watching a Czech movie made way back in the 80s. That's the only thing we could watch. Oh, we ate. We waited until New Year in Uzbekistan came. We watched Uzbek president. We saw the celebration. Again, you saw everything in the stream yesterday. And I wanted to go to bed to sleep. But then I forced myself to stay for 2 more hours and to watch the speech of Vladimir Putin. Because you know what? Not for pleasure, not for the sake of tradition, but you know what? I give you messages. I must know what is going on in Russia, and I must know what he was about to say. I waited and I saw the speech. The speech was the longest one on my memory, twice as long, maybe 3 times as long as usual. Usually it's like 3.5, 4 minutes most. This one was longer. And it was nothing but, I can say propaganda, but you know what? I wanna read it to you. I translate it into English, and I want you to hear his speech to us, his address to us, the president's speech of Vladimir Putin to Russians in the last minutes of 2022. Because this speech is worth knowing, if you know what I mean. So, 1,100 words, I counted. I quote, "Dear citizens of Russia, dear friends, the year 2022 is coming to an end. It was a year of difficult, necessary decisions, the most important steps towards the acquisition of full sovereignty of Russia and the powerful consolidation of our society. It was a year that put a lot in place, clearly separated courage and heroism from betrayal and cowardice, showed that there is no higher power than love for your family and friends, loyalty to friends and comrades, devotion to your motherland. It was a year of truly pivotal, fateful events. They have become the frontier that lays the foundation for our common future, our true independence. This is what we are fighting for today, protecting our people in our own historical territories, in the new subjects of Russian Federation, in the new lands of Russian Federation. Together we build and create. The main thing is the fate of Russia. Protecting the motherland is our sacred duty to our ancestors and descendants. Moral, historical rightness is on our side. The outgoing year has brought us great, drastic changes for our country and for the whole world. It was filled with worries, anxieties, but our multinational people, as it was in all the difficult epochs of Russian history, showed courage and dignity. Word and deed supported the defenders of the motherland, our soldiers and officers, all participants in a special military operation. We have always known, and today we are once again convinced that the sovereign, independent, secure future of Russia depends only on us, on our strength and will. For years, Western elites have hypocritically assured us of their peaceful intentions, including the resolution of the most difficult conflict in the Donbass. In fact, neo-Nazis were encouraged in every possible way, who continued to conduct military, openly terrorist actions against civilians of People's Republic of Donbass. The West lied about peace, but was preparing for aggression and today admits it openly. without hesitation, and they cynically use Ukraine and its people to weaken and split Russia. We have never allowed and will not allow anyone to do that. Russian servicemen, militias, and volunteers are now fighting for their native land, for truth and justice, and for the guarantees of peace and security for Russia to be reliably provided. They are all our heroes. It's the hardest for them right now. I cordially congratulate all participants of the special military operation on the upcoming New Year. Those who are now here next to me, who are on the front line and on the front lines, who are being trained in the training centers then to join the battle, who are in the hospitals or having fulfilled their duty have already returned home, all who on combat duty in strategic units, the entire personnel of the armed forces. Dear comrades, thank you for your valiant service. Our whole vast country is proud of your fortitude. Fortitude and courage. Millions of people are with you, heart and soul. The toast in your honor will surely sound the New Year's table. Many thanks to everyone who provided military operations, drivers, railway workers who supply the front lines, doctors, paramedics, nurses, who are fighting for the lives of soldiers, nursing wounded civilians. I thank the workers and engineers of military and other factories who are working with a full dedication today. The builders who are erecting civilian facilities and defensive fortifications, helping to restore the destroyed cities and villages of Donbass and Novorossiya. Dear friends, since 2014, after the Crimean events, Russia has been living under sanctions, but this year we were declared a real sanction war. Those who started it expected to complete destruction of our industry, finance, transport. This did not happen because we all together created reliable margin of safety. What we have done and are doing in this area is all aimed at the strengthening our sovereignty in the most important area, the economy. And our struggle for ourselves, for our interests, and for our future, of course, serves as an inspiring example of other states in their quest for just multipolar world order. I think it is very important that in the past years, such qualities as charity, solidarity, and active responsiveness have acquired special significance in our people. More and more citizens feel the need to help others. They unite themselves without any formal instructions. I want to thank you for your sensitivity, responsibility, and kindness, for the fact that you, people of different ages and influence, are actively involved in the common cause, organize warehouses and transport to deliver parcels to our fighters in the combat zone, to the affected residents of the cities and towns, and send children from the new subject of the Federation on vacation. You, my dear ones, provide great support to our families of the fallen soldiers. They gave their lives protecting the lives of others. I understand how difficult it is now, on New Year's Eve, for their wives, sons, daughters, and their parents who brought up real heroes. We will do everything possible to help the families of our fallen comrades raise their children, give them decent education, get a profession. I share your pain with all my heart and ask you to accept sincere word of support. Dear friends, at any time, even very difficult, the New Year was celebrated in our country. It was and remains a favorite holiday, for everyone has a magical gift to reveal the best feature in people, to multiply importance of traditional family values, the energy of generosity and trust. Celebrating New Year, everyone strives to please their loved ones, to warm them with attention and warmth, to give them what they dreamt of, to see the delight in the eyes of children, to feel how touchingly grateful parents and the older generations are for our attention. They know how to appreciate these lightning flashes of happiness. Friends, now is the right moment to pull all personal grievance and misunderstandings in the past, to tell the dearest people about their tender feelings about love, about how important it is to take care of each other, always at any time. May these heartfelt words and noble feelings give us all as much spiritual strength as possible, confident that together we will overcome all difficulties and keep our country great and independent. We will only go forward, win for the sake of our families and for the sake of Russia and for the sake of the future of our only beloved homeland. Happy New Year, dear friends. Happy New Year 2023. 1,100 words. 7 minutes. This is the most horrific speech I've ever heard in all the among president speeches. I'm not gonna be talking about the speech itself. Let's put it this way, it's not taken well by me, and I think it's not taken well by millions of Russians. I've seen harsh criticism, and I'm putting it mildly, of the speech in internet forums today. I've seen people's outrage about this speech. And quite honestly, I'm outraged myself. I'm just trying to control my feelings. Nothing said about the Ukrainians who were killed for the sake of what? Nothing said about Russians who left by millions. I read this speech to you in full for one simple reason, to warn you. Please watch your politicians. Have checks and balances. Do not let anyone destroy them. Do not let anyone to usurpate power. Because at the end, if you do that, you will get this. You will get speech like this, okay? And this would be the end. I heard the speech. And then, the speech ends 1 minute before midnight. Every single time, the president's speech. And then we hear boom, 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 for 1 minute, and then New Year comes, celebration. Right seconds after the start of the New Year, the Blue Light TV program, TV show goes on. And this year was not exception. When that thing went on, I couldn't quite believe it. They recreated the USSR scene. Little better quality of the TV picture. Well, obviously it's 2022, they have much better equipment, but everything else was the stylistics, the style. It was the 80s. I remember when I was a child, I remember that. With one little difference. They were never soldiers in the blue lights. Not even when Afghanistan was happening, not when Chechnya war was happening, nothing, not Georgian war was happening. No soldiers. This time, they were highly decorated officers sitting. There were quite a few of them, and they stole the show. Besides these officers, there were propaganda people, the usual suspects of propaganda. And they were performers. And guess what they were performing? The USSR songs. The theme was this. Oh, our beloved old songs from our youth, from our childhood. We grew up loving them. Let's hear them again. Let's remember that wonderful time. And there was euphoria about that wonderful time, They were singing old songs, a little like remixed. They were singing the same lyrics with new music. And propaganda people were toasting between songs, wishing all the best to the soldiers, wishing Russia winning in the special military operation and so forth. I couldn't watch much of it. I went to bed. I watched enough to understand what is happening. We're not going back into the USSR, my friends. We are back in the USSR already. But this USSR is much worse because it's far more technological advanced, and it is far more advanced in terms of controlling power, controlling people. And the bosses of this new USSR, they're allowed to have private property, and they're all billionaires. This is a tragic combination. You see, propaganda stole all media space in Russia over the past 11 months. And then it just stole the last remaining pillar of some kind of a hope, the blue light, the New Year celebration. It is no more in Russia. Instead, some kind of what they call patriotic programming. And this is what it is, patriotic programming. They're programming people in the way they think it's patriotic, in the way they've decided what's patriotic. They've decided for the people, now they're programming them. My friends, I consider Russia right now in 2023 a warning. A warning to all of you who live in democracies, who live in a country with somewhat freedom, who don't live in dictatorships. My friends, cherish your freedoms, cherish your democracies, cherish your societies. Don't let the systems of checks and balances break. Because if you do, power will be stolen and consolidated in one hands sooner or later. And then you will find yourself in a place, in time, and in a situation just like I found myself last night, tuning in to Russian TV and watching this slew of propaganda taking over the last remaining holy thing that we Russians had, historical celebration of New Year. And this has been my message. Very sad one. But you know what? These are sad times. Times bore messages, I should say. Before I turn the comments on, I would like to ask you to do two things. First, help me spread the message. Make reposts in your social media of my message, this one and the other ones. And please sign up for my Telegram channel called Inside Konstantin's Russia, where I keep you updated with more information about what's happening in Russia. I give you sometimes behind the scenes of whatabouts of my YouTube channel. Thank you so very much. I'm turning on the comments now, and I would like to hear your opinions as usual. Thank you.